So we better talk about CrowdStrike. In IT, we have this cycle, normally over about 20 years, where people move from the idea of putting stuff on mainframes or in the cloud back to your local device. Where is it safer? Because on a big mainframe data center, the cloud, it's on multiple servers, it's very redundant, unlikely to be lost. On your local device, if your internet doesn't work, there's a global IT outage, it's going to keep working because you've got the stuff there. The answer is actually probably a hybrid approach, but today we better talk about what's happened with CrowdStrike and all these outages, because I think it's quite important for people to understand that these kind of outages are entirely predictable. This is not a case of an unknown unknown where these kinds of risks weren't appreciated. Everybody in IT knows that making changes, which we do with antivirus every few minutes, can have a devastating impact on the IT. Now, at the moment, lots of people are running around going to touch every device to remove this, not malicious, this file, which then stops the machine's blue screening. But it's not going to be that easy for people to do that. It's going to take a bit of time. And people are going, well, what we need to do is we need to get rid of the cloud to move stuff back to our local devices. And my argument is no, that isn't the solution. The solution is to have a proper disaster recovery plan in place, because we know these kind of incidents are going to occur again, and we can't be reliant on this idea that you can store data locally to solve the problem. I'm not saying that you shouldn't store data locally. I'm just saying that putting it all in the cloud and hoping that the problem goes away, or keeping it on your local device, it doesn't fix the problem. And this idea, this cycle that we have over 20 years or so, has proven time and time again there is no perfect solution. The hybrid approach, store it in both. And then we've got issues around security. What if this data gets hacked and we lose all the information? Well, that can happen whether it's locally or in the cloud. It really doesn't make much difference. In fact, I would strongly argue having it in the cloud is much more secure because it's more resilient. So let's unpick what happened with this rogue update. Now, this isn't the first time that I've dealt with a rogue antivirus update. McAfee have had them, ESET, and generally it's a real pain because you've got to go to each device. And now obviously people work from home. You've got to either send them instructions or send the laptop in or something. It's a real time problem. And obviously you can't communicate with people very easily because you haven't got access to their systems, or maybe their phone is also, and Teams or whatever they're using is also on the computer. So how are you going to communicate with your staff at scale? And these are all sorts of problems that we can think about in advance, because I know there's going to be another global incident. I know that the Azure Microsoft system is going to die at some point. And that's why places like the emergency services, they have these plans in place, and your business should too. So let's dig into what you need to do to create an incident response plan. Now, this is quite a long discussion now, so if you want to come back to this later, especially if you're dealing with an active incident, that might be helpful. But I'll try and just chop off this bit of the video and make it into a separate video. So when it comes to risk, there are things that we know that are risks, things we don't know are risks, and then there's the most dangerous ones, the unknown unknowns. And this is a case sometimes where multiple things can have at the same time can cause problems. And often when it comes to incident response, we failed to anticipate this idea that multiple things could go wrong at the same time. Now, I'm sure that CrowdStrike have got multiple steps and measures in place. They don't just randomly push out an update to half of the world's corporate companies without testing it. So how did this get through? Well, probably because of an unknown unknown. There's something that they overlooked in their process because they didn't know about it. Now they do, but it's too late now. So this won't happen in the same way again, if that makes sense. So part of when there's an incident like this, I'm looking now and going, well, fortunately, I'm not having to deal with this right at the moment, but I am looking at what's happening so I can get some lessons learned. So whenever there's any kind of incident, it's really important to learn about the lessons learned. So when I did my cybersecurity degree, we talked about the King's Cross fire and the fact there've been lots of little fires before and people have kind of put up with it. Same's true with outages. Sometimes people just put up with them. And the idea that we can somehow prevent these things from happening isn't true. What we can do is we can mitigate the risk, but we can't eliminate it entirely. So we need a backup process for critical things so they keep working. So Sky News was off the air. I don't know if they're back on now. The problem occurred because their systems, for whatever reason, they had no way of getting a backup in operational quickly. And sometimes it's just not fixable, but there are a lot of things we can do to anticipate, well, what if? So what if all of our data center goes down? What if our phone system goes down at the same time? What if, and how do we communicate this? So the first thing that you want to create on your incident response plan is a communication strategy, because you can't control these incidents, but what you can definitely 100% do is work out what you're going to say to people when there's an incident. My recommendation is, as soon as you discover there's a major incident, and obviously a big organisation have an incident response plan, PR team, etc. But all you want to do is say initially, hey, we're investigating a problem with X, with our systems, whatever. The point is that you're letting people know you're aware there's an issue. That buys you some time. That builds trust in your brand, because people then know, oh, they're aware there's an issue, they're working on it, I'll come back in half an hour. And okay, there's obviously things like airlines where that's not very practical, but at the moment I see a lot of planes are being grounded because the back end systems are all working because they've got the redundancy, but yet the airlines themselves can't do anything because they can't access their systems because their machines are all blue screen. And by the way, this is affecting servers and desktops and everything Microsoft-y, so it's a big headache. So have somebody in your organization that's responsible for putting out that initial message and a way of doing it. Now, obviously, your website's good, social media is good, but you're not advertising that your systems are unreliable. By the way, you're just letting people know that you're aware there's an incident, and then you want to then update that. So as you bring your incident team together, which again is going to be on the incident plan, how that's going to work, and you've got backup communication methods so you can communicate, and you will start working through your incident plan. You're going to investigate what the cause is. Now that may take a while. It may be really obvious what the cause is, but then once you know what the cause is, you can then try and mitigate it. The problem we have is that it can take a long time to figure this out, and we have to sometimes make decisions very quickly. Once we've figured out how to mitigate it and we've done our testing of the mitigation, we can then deploy the mitigation. Again, that can take time, but that is the point where, as you start to deploy the mitigation, you can then update customers and say, we are now fixing this, and you can give people an idea of timescales of how long it's going to be till the systems are working again. Next, as we deploy our mitigation, we're then it's very important, as we saw with the CDX ransomware, that you make sure that you've anticipated things falling over again, because what often happens is that people think they fixed the initial problem and then it all dies because of another unrelated thing. So, for example, you bring your booking system online and then the payroll system goes down because they're somehow linked together. So you do have to plan, and part of your incident plan is going to include this, how you're going to bring systems back online so they don't just get swamped and then die again. It happens all the time. It's very frustrating. Okay, then over time you're going to be able to mitigate the incident, use your workarounds, which we'll talk about in a minute, but then you're going to be up and running again, hopefully. Then you can say to the customers via your social media, website, you can remove those banner messages and you can say, hey, we're operational again. And that can obviously take a time. What you don't want to do is tell people you're operational again and then for it to fall over again about an hour later. So that message can go out a little bit later. And obviously the last thing you'll want to do is give people a lessons learned report. And there's two versions of this. The public one, which is like, how are we going to stop this happening to our systems again? It's very PR-y, I'm not going to say too much, but the back end system should be much more detailed. So what steps are you going to put in place to prevent this kind of incident occurring again in the future? And the problem here is that the lessons learned often get lessons thrown away. And when that happens, that means that the lessons haven't been learned because they've been unlearned. So you need to amalgamate and collect your lessons learned together. Now, when it comes to preventing these kind of things, and this comes back to what are we going to do about the cloud and putting stuff on our local devices, and how are we going to control cyber incidents at scale, because we're going to see those with AI, zero-day vulnerabilities. I'm not going to talk about that again in this video. I did that earlier in the week. But what can we do to mitigate these things? So the simplest thing to do is look at what in your business is business critical. So like I can't do much work without a computer and a phone. So what backup systems could I have in place? So if that stopped working, I can still do some of the critical stuff within the business. So for example, the emergency services, say the 999 system, that has multiple redundancy. So if the phone lines go down in the call center, it could switch to another one. If the PCs all die in the 999 system, they've got backup systems. And the point is here that they've thought about what might happen, not necessarily the reasons why it might happen, but what are they going to do in that case. So for example, if an area's emergency services is swamped, can the calls be routed somewhere else? Can you, there's a really good thing you can do as well, which I forgot to mention. If you know how to do this in your incident response plan, you can make it so when people ring, it says, hey, thanks for calling XYZ company. We're aware of an ongoing incident with this. We'll update this message when we've got more information. Because then a lot of people will go, oh, okay, that's fine. I don't need to speak to anyone. I can see they've got a problem. I'll come back to it a bit later. But at least people are aware that you're dealing with the situation. It's a really good way of putting people at ease that you're in control and that you're managing the incident. Now, obviously, there are some things you can't fix, like people's flights being delayed and cancelled. There's no easy way of coming back from that, unfortunately. So part of your incident plan should be to kind of work out the financial cost of these things and work out what it's worth investing in redundant systems. Because are you going to lose a lot of business because your systems are down? How can we mitigate that risk? So for example, if you're a retail outlet and your till system goes down, could you have a standalone PDQ card reader device that you issue to each site? Possibly, because then they can take payments. Or if you're a company that relies heavily on IT, which pretty much all of us do nowadays, what can you do to communicate with your team if they're a virtual team or a hybrid team and they've only got the computers? Do you have any database of their personal phone numbers? How are you going to communicate this stuff out to them? And there's loads of different ways of looking at this, but the point is you want to be able to work out how you're going to communicate with people, how you're going to manage the incident, and what redundant systems you can put in place to mitigate these risks. So that's it really. It's quite a complicated thing to do, but don't imagine for 1 minute this will not happen again, because it will, and don't think that putting stuff locally in your device will fix it, because it won't. It just means that the data is sitting on your device, and if you lose or break it, then it's going to be lost. So I hope that helps. Thanks very much for watching, and if I can help you with your managing of your IT business, or you need help today with the CrowdStrike stuff, do get in touch. Speak to you soon. Cheers, bye-bye.